this is Sabina at Cross Keys Crafts. I would like to show you today how you can make a paper lantern like this. This one I decorated as a pumpkin for Halloween, or rather autumn. I don't really do Halloween. It opens up so I can put an electric tea light or some string lights in there and close it up, and it does stand up like this. But the one I want to build today, I'll show you, it works exactly the same way, but I want to decorate it like a cat. So what you need for this to start with is, by the way, I got inspired by something I saw on, I think it was like Pinterest, and it was a Cricut file, something you had to purchase, and I thought, no, I'll try to figure out how I can make it myself just with nesting dies. So ideally you have those. If you have a circle cutter like this, you might be able to do it with that, but I think you have to work on a bigger scale than I have here. But to be honest, you can change the scale up, you can make this bigger if you want to, because I will show you how do you figure it out. So you need two nesting dies that are not too close to each other. My nesting dies here, but I will actually show you what these cut at. They are, I'd say, just over 4 inches wide on the outside, 4 1/8 I think, and on the inside, so the smaller one, that is 3 1/4. Yeah, so the thickness here is, I'm not very good with this, that's a half, that's a half, that's a quarter, so it's 5/8 I think. Is that correct? Anyway, hopefully you can see this here, because you want a little bit of a frame to build this sturdy, and you need 6 of these. You can do 8, but if you do 8, these panels get smaller, and I found if I wanted to decorate these sensibly, I thought 6 was the better option. So then you need 2 discs that sit at the top here and here at the bottom. This is a later edition, I will show you that then. And mine are here again, is from the same nesting die set. So this one here is 1 1/2 inches, just over. Yeah, again, it doesn't matter, I wouldn't have it too big, because the bigger it is, the lower it will sit, and you want this to sit basically just underneath there, but you need a little bit of stability, so I think that's a good size. So, and the first thing we need to do is we need to score these to fold these in half. My circle is actually 4 1/8 wide, so I can see exactly here where that groove is, and I need to score it in the middle, which can be really tricky. So I'm just shifting it over just a wee bit, so I've got an even edge here and here to the next score line, so to 4 1/4, and then I can score this at 4 1/8. Yeah, you might have it easier if your circle has got a sort of even measurement. Yeah, and I can check that it's scored in the middle by now folding it in half. Yeah, I'm happy with that. By the way, when you put the 2 nesting dies together, make sure they are evenly spaced out, otherwise these won't fit perfectly. I can show you this happened to me here, for example, so this is not perfectly covered. It doesn't really matter, but it's a definitely neater look. So I do this with the other 6 circles, and then I show you how I glue these together. Some of these circles sort of didn't quite match the other side, so I just manipulated them until they were proper folded in half. That's not a problem at all. By the way, I'm not quite sure what weight my cardstock is, because I'm using an old calendar. I'd never used the pages. It's lovely thick cardstock. I reckon about 250 GSM. I wouldn't use anything lower than 220 because you want some sort of sturdiness to this. So I'm now putting glue on half of one of those circles. And I'm sticking the next one on it with the, what's it called? The score lines matching. So I'll just turn it around because I think the top of my circles is a little bit wider than the bottom. So making sure this matches. So use a nice wet glue, but that you can wriggle a little bit. So it's just a little bit, the middle bit, sorry, that I've glued together. So, and I will continue this now until I've glued them all together. So the one I have exposed here, that will then be glued onto the last one. When you have finished, you should have something like this. So it doesn't perfectly line up, but that all doesn't matter in the end. Apologies, by the way, if you hear noises. It's Friday night and the pub is in full swing. I might hear the noises and you might not. You never know. So I've now got my 2 discs here, and I need to make 6 even markings. By the way, if you got threads like that on there, just use a nail file, and they come from die cutting. These are cheap nesting dies, so they don't always cut perfectly, but that gets rid of all the little threads. So I need to make markings, and I will use a pencil. I will actually do it on the back. Let me just zoom in, and I need to mark now. By the way, I put it on my grid mat here so I can mark the middle, so at the top and the bottom here. So not sure if the camera picks it up. I will actually use my white pastel pen. So top and the bottom, and I'm thinking about the clock. I think that way it's the easiest thing to do. So I've got 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. Sorry about that. So it might be easier doing that. So 12, 6, 3 and 9, and then doing, yeah, it's so much easier that way. So basically doing the segments there, and the ones you need to cut now are 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 10 and 8. And you're cutting towards the middle, so if you imagine the dot there, this is what you're cutting. So I will sort that on the other one as well. So I just cut in, yeah, about as much as I have marked here. Yeah, I think that will do us. So let me just check for you how far that is. That's about 1/4 of an inch. So I quickly will do this off camera. I'll tell you what I will do. I will cheat and I will put the other one underneath and cut them both at the same time. So I've used my eraser a little bit to get rid of that, but because it's underneath, it doesn't really matter because you can hardly see it. So now this needs to be placed one at the top, and the idea is to put the circles here, let me just zoom out a little bit, circles into the slots we have cut. So might be a bit fiddly to start with, but this is actually what it does. It spaces the segments here evenly. I might have to cut them a little bit deeper than the 1/4. And with the first one, I used some wet glue to glue it down, but I think hot glue might even be better. But let me just have a look from the top. So it's a little bit fiddly. I might just get away with that. So I'm basically bending these segments down a little bit as well. We'll be hiding most of that anyway. So, but if you find yours doesn't work, cut them a little bit deeper. This one doesn't want to go through. I'll tell you what I think I did. I think I actually cut a little bit of a wedge out. So rather than just doing a single cut, I think I did a little bit of a wedge. Just a teeny weeny bit. It's been a few weeks since I built the pumpkin. So I think the paper will fit in a little bit more nicely then. Yeah, that's better. So I'm doing the same at the top, and as I said, I will put some, I will get the hot glue out now. So I will put a dot of hot glue underneath. I hope my camera focuses, just underneath this point here where it matches, just to hold this piece of cardstock in place. And the same here, so hot glue on the middle here, on the joint there, and then grab this piece. Whilst I had the hot glue gun out, I also cut a smaller circle and just stuck it at the bottom. I think that will make it so much easier to stand this up and then to put the other panels on. It looks a bit wonky at the moment, but doesn't matter. It will be a cat, and the cat might be a little bit wobbly. Never mind. So the trickiest thing, well, it's not really tricky, but the trickiest thing of this thing will be now to measure the size of these segments. Depending on the size of your circles, they will be a different size, but all I did was measure the widest point between the between one side and other side of the segment. So this is, I'd say, just over 1.5. Oh, sorry, you can't see. So, and then the bottom bit where it will be attached. So that's 3/4. Need to write this down though. So bottom is 3/4, and the top, what did I say? Sometimes it's a little bit easier for me in centimeters, so 1 5/8. And you can do it and check it on the others as well, whether that would be the same measurement. See, this is even a little bit wider. That's 1 3/4. So that's 1 5/8. 1 5/8. I think I'll stick with 1 5/8. So it's a bit of winging included here. So, and then you need a measuring tape, or you have to do it like this. You measure from the bottom piece here along the inside to the top. So I think this is what I did because I couldn't find my measuring tape. So just go along here, wind it round, if that makes sense. So that is 3.5. So I needed 3.5 in height. Plus then I need some little tabs, but they don't need to be deeper than 1/4. So if I have 1/4 at the top, 1/4 at the bottom, I hope that all makes sense. So the whole thing will be 4 inches. Yeah. So let me just measure it out for you. So I'm making myself a template. So 4 inches. This is a quarter tab and a quarter tab here at the top. So I will have it 3/4 in width. So I will, how do I do that? If that is 3/4, I try to get it sort of in the middle. Oh. 3/4 there. Same at the bottom. I hope I make sense to you what I'm drawing here. Is that 3/4? Yeah. So, and then in the middle, yeah, I'm eyeballing this. I needed to have 1 5/8. So the middle of 1 5/8. 1 5/8 is here. So I'm eyeballing it. I'm really winging it. I think that looks like it's even. So, and all I did was, once I had the maximum width here, the minimum width here, I might have to make it a little bit longer there and shorter there. I just basically drew a curve. That's all I did. So same on the other side. Yeah, you could even, if you're happy with the curve on one side, you could fold the piece in half and then copy it on the other side. But I think I'm happy with it. I think this needs to be a little bit slimmer at the top. And then this is my template. Oh, one thing I've forgotten actually. Nope. Tell you what, I did this wrong because we need the 3/4 here. That's just the tab. So now this will be straight. So I find if I put my hand down like that, it goes like that. So I hope the video is not going to be too long. So I'm going to cut this out now, and I can use that on as a template for all my 6 pieces. But before I cut my pieces, I will check that this will actually fit into the spaces where I want it. So I'm folding it on that line. I might actually have it too short now because I've got the, no, should be right, should be right. So if that sits in here now, and I fold it, can you see? We'll make a nice curve. It's a little bit open there, but I think that's because that's the wider bit. So if I put it in here, that will fit. I remember some of these segments, because I hadn't measured it properly, needed a little bit of adjustment. So I don't know if you can see that this is a little bit slimmer than this one here, but all in all, I'm happy with that, so I'm sticking with that. So measure yours as well. So what I did here was, all of these pieces have got vellum in the back, and 3 of them I covered with this cover die that I die cut from. This is cardstock, very thin cardstock, and some double-sided adhesive on the back. But it was a bit of a pain in the bum getting all these bits out. So for the other pieces, I put cardstock on vellum, but from the cardstock I cut these leaf shapes first. Again, this is on double-sided adhesive. So I stuck it on the vellum afterwards and then cut the shape again. So for this one here, I actually have got this lovely vellum. So I think, but this is too flimsy, I don't think you can just use vellum. So I will actually cut some shapes in black and cut an inner frame out to cover with the vellum here, just basically have a window. I think I want to do that with Just thinking what I want to do with all of them, because my other idea was to die cut little cats. I've got a cat, well, I've got a few cat dies, and to stick them on there. I might do that as well with all these pieces, but I've got these vellum sheets. They are from Germany, so I can't give you a source there, but yeah, that's what I will do now. So I will cut these 6 times in black and then cut just by hand a frame like that, just with my craft knife, so that I can stick the vellum behind it. It is actually the next day. I had to interrupt my crafting yesterday and continue this morning. So I have cut 3 panels with my dies here. I chose 2 kittens and a heart. Reason being is most of my cat dies were quite wide, so I chose this one here in the middle, the slimmer one here at the bottom, and then I needed something on the top. I actually stuck these together on one piece of tape which came apart when I last peeled it off, so I had them in the same position for all these 3 panels. One thing I forgot, sorry, this is the 3rd panel. One thing I forgot to say and do yesterday, but I'll put a disclaimer in the video, is on one of these pieces I cut the tab a little bit longer. This will be the one where I will insert the candle. I'm also just noticing it's a bit wonky, but I think it doesn't matter. So the other thing I did and had forgotten to mention, because these tabs are at a right angle here, you can actually miter them and just basically cut the curve all the way down, because when we glue them on we're working on a circle, so these need to be like this. Then I stuck these down just with my wet glue on the what's it called, vellum. I cut my vellum to 3.5 inches, which was the width without the tabs, because you don't need any glue on the tabs. I used my wet glue on this one here. On this one here I used double-sided adhesive, which I put on the paper before I did the die cutting. Yeah, but then I stuck it on the vellum, as you can see here, and with this panel here, because of the pattern of on the vellum, I made sure that I spaced it out so I've got a similar pattern. I didn't want it to be offset. For the frame, I think I said yesterday I'm going to do that with my craft knife, but I just wanted to show you on the last one how easy it is actually just to cut it with your scissors, which is what I did. So I just poked a hole in there, and then I just went along cutting an even frame. This was really, really easy to do. I'm doing this in real time on the video. If you wanted to, you could draw on the back where you have to cut, but I trust myself that I'm very good with eyeballing it. There we go. Oh, just the last bit there. Another snip. Last bit doesn't want to come off properly, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, so I think that's fine. So again, I'm gluing this down now. I will leave that to dry for a moment. The wet glue needs a little bit of time. I also noticed I keep forgetting vellum, because it's paper. It does warp a little bit with the glue, but when you leave it to dry, it should go back into its place, so it should be fine really. So as I said, I'm leaving these to dry, and then I'll show you how we glue these onto our globe thing. Because I don't want any of these panels to be upside down and have the pattern sort of offset to the other ones, I've actually marked on the top where the top is, because I want this to be sort of even. Obviously with the die cut pieces that's easy to tell. So all I need to do now is to put glue on the top tab and basically place it, I'll just show you this on a dry move, place it onto the circle up there. This is a little bit fiddly. Also make sure you've got it sort of straight. You don't want it to be at a funny angle. You can move it in a little bit. Yeah, you can have the circle overlap just a wee bit so that it fits there. And I'm doing this all the way around first at the top. At the bottom, when you glue them down at the bottom afterwards, make sure you don't glue down the longer tab, because this is where we need to open it to insert the candle. So I will do this off camera because it needs to dry. It is very fiddly. I think it'll be difficult to show anyway, but I'm just using my Barely Arts glue, which is, I find, an in-between between a quick grab glue and a glue that allows you to move it a little bit. I do not suggest using something like Collal because I think that will dry too slowly and then this will just come apart. So I just want to show you this here. I basically put my finger in from the other side and put my finger in underneath. So when I place this in here, I can use my finger to apply some pressure. I'm not too worried about the glue oozing out because we will cover the top bit, and that will basically hold it in place.